Chapter 241. Reborn celebrated. The afterfight party was small, consisting only of the knights and Michael and his group. The squires immediately surrounded Zion, asking him if he could teach them some of his moves. Those who chose to become a part of the way of the gauntlets were the ones who asked with a little bit more fervor in their voice. "Teach us, please. The way you punch is so fast and quick. I've never even seen someone duck and dodge like you. And those gauntlets, can you show us? Is it really made out of mithril artifacts?" Zion graciously accepted all the compliments with a humble tone, saying that what he did was nothing special and all that. But of course, the smirk on his face said that he was enjoying the attention everyone was giving him. He began punching the air and shuffling his feet, performing his shadow box training session for the knights. Michael noticed that the squires and knights from the way of the gauntlets were similar to the boxers of the olden days in his previous life. Their postures were completely rigid, with their hands just awkwardly positioned in the front. It seemed that the boxing techniques in this world were not yet that advanced, seeing as they were completely bewildered by a simple feet shuffle. Michael! While the other knights were having fun with Grieve, Fudge, and Zion, he was approached by Sir John, who was walking on crutches on both sides. "Are you recovering well?" he asked Sir John, and the knight replied with a nod. "My body can walk tomorrow, but my mind needs more time to recover. My axe is my lifeline. The fact that it broke means that I should have died in that arena." Michael consoled him. "You didn't know," he said. "I heard that Five was someone from a conglomerate called the Hephaestus Company." "Ah, I see. Then it is no wonder that my weapon was not up to standard. It also explains why he is not yet recovered by his team." "What do you mean?" Sir John explained that after the fight, the knights nursed Five back to health. Usually, he should have been recovered by the Hammerstone Company by now to be treated at their building. But no one had claimed him yet. This meant that Five was most probably abandoned by his company. Those conglomerates are quite strict. A single failure can be enough for you to be fired and cast aside. It seems that whatever Five was trying to do in the arena, he was unable to fulfill it, leading to his dismissal. Michael found it to be a cold-blooded act. But that's just the way things go. Even in his previous world, a single mistake could cost anyone their job. And seeing as Five was strong enough to defeat a 5-star knight like Sir John, he would have no trouble finding another employment in another company. By the way, what was that pill that he consumed? It was most probably a cultivation pill. Usually, those are only consumed during meditation in order to increase the amount of mana intake into the body. But he used it while in an active state, which led to all sorts of side effects on his body. Sir John then looked at Michael awkwardly, as if he was having trouble if he wanted to say something or not. "This leads me to a favor I need to ask of you." "What is it?" "Our whole knightly court wishes to procure chocolates and armor directly from your company." Michael's eyebrows raised, intrigued at the proposition. "We saw how inadequate our equipment is, and we are in dire need of an upgrade. Your weapons and armors have proven to be of the best quality we have seen in recent years." Of course, Michael said yes. Becoming the weapon and armor supplier of the Angora City Knightly Court was a big opportunity that should not be let go. Although, I do have to remind you that chocolates have no real effects, right? We Rebornians just have a special skill that allows us to take advantage of its properties. Sir John still insisted on having chocolates become a part of the deal. "Even if the effects are not as substantial as young Zion over there, we still feel a little bit of improvement upon eating chocolates. And even if it is just a figment of our imagination, we have become addicted to its sweet taste." Even now, the knights were eating chocolate while drinking beer at the tables. Michael eventually acquiesced and struck a deal with Sir John and the rest of the knights. And before they shook hands, Sir John had one last request. "Oh, and can we also get more beer?" After the celebrations in the court, Michael and the others returned to their headquarters in the city. They returned to Welcome's Inn, which was now completely covered in a large cloth enclosure that obscured the whole building from the outside. The sounds of muffled hammering echoed on the outside, revealing that there was construction going on under the blanket. This was all part of Michael's plan to renovate the whole building and turn it into Reborn's Angora City headquarters. Upon passing through the cloth clover, Michael saw that the whole building was destroyed from the inside, and the wooden structures were replaced with concrete pillars for more stability. The new and old Rebornians made their homes in makeshift concrete rooms on the bottom floor. Michael saw that the red mankeys from the arena earlier had successfully reunited with their relatives here. They thanked Michael immensely for his help and asked if there was anything they could do to make it up to him. Since their talent laid in fighting rather than constructing, there wasn't any job they could do right now. So he suggested they follow Grieve for now. The undead General Skeleton quickly took control of the red mankeys and began making them do all sorts of physical construction jobs to toughen up their bodies. "Welcome home, Lord Michael." Shiina greeted Michael and reported to him everything that happened while he was away. Thankfully, nothing out of the ordinary. "Did you have a productive day?" Yuna asked. He told her the deal he struck with Sir John and the Knights, which gained him approval from the diplomat. "Now you just need to meet with the Magic Tower and gain their approval. Those two factions will be enough to persuade the Duke to let your Golden Road pass through Angora City." "I'm planning on doing it tomorrow," he said to her. In the meanwhile, since he wasn't going to do anything tonight, Michael ended up helping the Rebornian engineers with the construction of the headquarters. And with his mastery over mana, the progress skyrocketed, allowing them to completely finish construction in a matter of hours. By the time the sun rose in the sky, the new building was ready to be unveiled to the general public of Angora City. Reborn became the talk of the city because of yesterday's fight in the arena. Word was spread quite fast, which prompted a lot of people to search for the Reborn company all over. That was until they were led by some soldiers into a grand building in the middle of the street. "Reborn company? Huh? Where did this stone building come from?" Chapter 242. Reborn Department Store. Early in the morning, the citizens of Angora City woke up to the sight of a huge stone building erected in the middle of the street. This was definitely not here before because they would have remembered the sophisticated architecture of the structure. "Reborn company? You mean the people who conquered the tomb? I only knew them for chocolates. Didn't you hear about yesterday? They defeated someone from the Hammerstone group." Eventually a crowd had gathered in the front, bringing in more curious citizens looking to find some answers. Suddenly, the revolved around itself to reveal a pleasant-looking woman wearing a dress. She looked at the crowd in front of her and bowed to them in deference. "Welcome to the Reborn Department Store, dear valued customers. You are now free to enter," she said. The curious onlookers broke out in hushed whispers, hesitant in taking the woman's words for the truth. They had never heard of a department store before. "Please come in and take a look at our wares." She walked back to the revolving door, with some people bravely following her in. And when they saw what was inside, they were completely stunned and bewildered. Everywhere they could see, there were shelves upon shelves containing a variety of metal equipment and armors of all kinds. Everything shone even in the dim light, exhibiting its high quality from even far away. Each shelf had a specific equipment stored. On the very left side were for arm braces and gauntlets only, while the one next to it were meant for chest plates and shoulder armors. People began to walk through the shelves until they reached the very end, where a counter was located. There were several demi-human employees behind the desk who bowed politely at the potential customers. "Welcome, sirs, madams. Would you like to try our new chocolate desserts?" Beside the desk were crates and boxes full of chocolate goodies. There were visual depictions of a man and woman eating chocolates with a satisfied smile on their faces, which stimulated the appetite of anyone looking at them. One of their very first customers approached the desk shyly. I would like to buy a bar of chocolates," he said. The attendants on the other side smiled at the customer. "Of course. Would you like to buy our new leather shirt that is both stylish and protective? If you buy one now, you can avail an entire box of chocolates for yourself for only 100 gold altogether." The man immediately nodded and pushed a sack of gold to the counter, receiving his new shirt and box of chocolate. The other people who heard this couldn't help themselves and bought one for themselves as well. It was too good of a deal. Michael looked down the balcony overlooking the entire department store. It had been a couple of hours since they opened up their new headquarters to the public, and already, the entire floor was being swarmed by adventurers and civilians alike. As soon as the first satisfied customer left the building, the news spread like wildfire. People began visiting this obscure part of the city just to take a look at the Reborn department store that seemingly got constructed overnight. It was an unbelievable story to most of them, which was quickly proven true once they visited the actual building. Curiosity was what pushed people to enter the building. Quality products were what forced them to stay and buy one for themselves. "Look, this uncommon Mankey armor set looks durable while being easy to move through," said one of the adventurers poring through the armor on display. "This one looks like that Dragonborn we saw yesterday in the arena. It even has the same fiery red color," said one of his friends, pointing at the armor set inspired by Zion, which was currently displayed in a glass. "I know. I want to buy that rare Dragonborn chest plate, but it's too expensive for me." The incredible display that Zion put yesterday increased the reputation of Reborn products in the city. Almost everyone heard about it by now, and timely enough, they could now purchase their own Reborn armor here. Zion's weapon and armor triumphed against Hammerstone equipment. That was enough assurance for people to believe that Reborn's quality was top-notch, leading them to buy it in droves. Even civilians who had not held a single weapon in their hands ended up purchasing leather armors and decorative weapons just for their pleasure. "Congratulations, this uncommon Rebornian steel sword comes with 10 free chocolate bars. Enjoy!" said one of the cashiers as they handed out the customer's sword in a grand wooden box with the symbol R carved on it. Sweet! Zion's consumption of chocolate during the fight also helped increase the popularity of chocolates, with others believing that they could also become super strong like him upon consumption. All in all, the first day of business in Angora City turned out to be extremely good. "Business is doing well, Lord Michael." Shiina approached Michael with a bunch of papers in her hands. "It sure is. I have heard from the Shadow Orcs that a lot of the companies in the city expressed their surprise at our new department store," she said, looking at her papers. "It's only natural," he replied. "I'm sure they are trying to find out how we were able to accomplish such a big construction job in just under a day. Should I instruct the Shadow Orcs to create illusions and mislead their investigations?" Michael shook his head.
No.
"Let them find out about concrete." Shina's eyes lit up once she understood Michael's intentions. "I see. Once they find out about concrete, they will inevitably contact you to purchase their own supply." "Yup," he replied, smiling. "The more this rumor spreads, the less we have to do to advertise our products." The female Dragonborn respectfully bowed at Michael, once again surprised at his genius. "Well then, I shall make sure that they accidentally find concrete in our inventory." Shiina left, leaving Michael all alone with just his shadow. "Narito Sasuke, what did you find out about the Stone Cold 6? Maybe I should call them Stone Cold 5 now since they're down one member." The two Shadow Orcs emerged from his shadow, kneeling. "Just like the other companies, they are surprised that we were able to create such a big project. They are even more surprised that it has garnered a lot of customers on the very first day of our opening, which has directly caused theirs to plummet," said Narito. "What did they say about 5? They are shocked at his loss, but attribute it to nothing more than the failure of 5, and not the strength of Zion. They still don't consider the appearance of mithril artifacts as real, and they just think that Zion used some kind of special weapons and armors," said Sasuke, completing the report. Michael thanked the two Shadow Orcs, who had been stationed this whole time in the Hammerstone Company to survey their surroundings. "Continue surveillance," he said to them, and the two descended back into the shadows. With his preparations done, Michael set his sights onto the tallest spire in the entire city, the Angora City Magic Tower. Chapter 243, Talk with Tracheus. Michael lets the Rebornians take care of the matters in the new department store and journey out to the city in search of the Magic Tower, which wasn't that hard since all he had to do was look up, and he could see its towering structure piercing up to the heavens. Once he reached the base, he came into the familiar sight of the strange black material that the whole tower was made out of. Everything looked the same as the tower back in Kingsbridge City with barely any difference. The tower here was more plentiful with water mana, but that was about it. Its very entrance was a large arcing structure, which was a portal that led directly inside. He walked through its swirling green liquid, and as he did, he now only realized that the magic structure of this portal was similar to the pocket dimension he came through in the tomb. This one was a lot more sophisticated, with complicated intertwinement of mana and use of exotic materials, while the one at the tomb used a very crude form. Of course, he absorbed anything he could glean from the portal. As he stepped foot over the portal, he found himself inside the tower that opened up to a room with a large domed ceiling. There were mages and wizards walking around with books in their hands, completely preoccupied with whatever they were doing to even give a glimpse at him. They wore robes and coned hats, with some even having magical spells weaved onto the very fabric itself. He realized that it probably helped increase their magic power, but only marginally. It was like a single drop compared to a whole bucket like the mithril artifact. He walked through the hallways, seeing moving paintings conversing with him or the other mages that passed by them. Now that he was a little bit more adept in magic, Michael saw through the whole magical structure behind it. It contained intertwining complicated magic theories that allowed the figure in the painting to move like a real human. But seeing no light mana present in their bodies, he knew that they were not a living being at all. They were more akin to the robot animatronics back in his previous life. Although they moved like a real human, they only did so because they were programmed to do so. Maybe this could be good for an advertisement billboard, Michael thought to himself. After exploring the first floor of the magic tower, he came across a certain hallway that was quite familiar to him. He followed it down and led him to a library. And even from far away, he could hear that familiar sound of wooden clicks and clacks echoing from the inside. Michael walked closer and saw the library, which was filled with mages and wizards facing each other with a wooden board on top of their square tables. They were playing Reborn chess. This was a nostalgic sight for him, as this was where he got most of his mystical art spells. He had to hustle a win against unsuspecting wizards who would never have thought that he was the one who created Reborn chess in the first place. "I heard that this is how you met Cerberus," Tracheus said, shimmered into existence beside Michael. "Yeah. Did he tell you how?" "Oh yes. Haha, he is still salty about it after all this time. He keeps warning me and everyone he could talk to that we should never fight against you in a battle of Reborn chess, or else we'll lose all our dignity." "Too bad. I was planning on challenging you to a game," Michael chuckled, remembering the white-bearded old man. "We can play, but no bets, haha. I don't want to end up like Cerberus." Michael and the Tower Master took up a spot in one of the tables below, which garnered a lot of attention from the mages and wizards playing. "Whoa! The Tower Master is playing? Who is that boy? Isn't this bullying? Fighting a child is not fair, Tower Master." Tracheus simply laughed upon hearing the words of his colleagues. "Don't you know who this guy is?" he asked them. He then picked up one of the boards and flipped it over, revealing a simple but imposing symbol are etched in the middle. The Reborn Company. Most mages knew about their name solely from the chessboards they played with every day. And since these mages were essentially hermits who never left their towers unless absolutely necessary, they didn't hear much about them aside from that. "He's the owner of Reborn," Tracheus revealed. The mages and wizards took a look at Michael again, disbelief forming in their faces. They thought that the creator of this game was someone as old and wizened as the Tower Master, but it turned out to be a product from an 11-year-old boy. "No way." Michael started off the game, moving his pawn 2 blocks forward. "Your new department store is truly something to behold. Even we were caught unaware," the Tower Master said, mirroring Michael's move. "It's all due to our proprietary products, of course, with the help of a little bit of magic," he replied, moving his knight piece. "A lot of companies are knocking on our doors about that, asking if we had anything to do with the construction. They don't believe that stone could be built that fast. Of course, we told them no. Our magic tower remains to be a neutral party in the matters of commerce and business." "Did they believe you?" Michael asked, capturing a pawn. "Most of them did, but there was one group that was quite adamant. You probably know them by now. seeing as they are your biggest competitor in Angora City. Michael looked up at Tracheus. Hammerstone Company, he guessed. Yes, since they are the sub-company of the Hephaestus conglomerate, their influence was quite hard to deflect. They are willing to pay a lot of money to have us help them construct a similar department store in their territory. But we told them that even with all the money in the world, we can't help them in that regard, Tracheus replied, moving his queen to a more favorable position. I have noticed that they are quite aggressive in their attempts to become the dominant company in the city. Why is that? Michael asked inquisitively. Tracheus waved his hand and cast a simple silence spell in a sphere around them to make sure that the spectators couldn't hear his next words. It's because they're planning on creating a monopoly in the city, Tracheus revealed. They want to become the sole provider of everything metal. And by doing so, the owner of Hammerstone will stand a better chance in competing. Michael raised his eyebrow. Competing in what? There is a current competition going around in the Queen's region. Angora City is still far away from the heart of the region to feel its effects, but we will be inevitably involved in it. Sub-companies of the conglomerates like the Hammerstone Company are making big moves in order to gain more money and territories at an increasingly fast rate. I hear they're planning to make their own golden roads. Chapter 244, Reason for Proof. Michael showed genuine surprise. He thought that he was the only one in the entire region making a golden road. After all, the original one had been abandoned and left in the dust all those years ago. They're building their own golden roads? He asked, incredulous at the coincidence. Who would have thought that people would start their own projects just as he started his? Yes, Tracheus confirmed, moving his bishop piece to the corner. It has been an open secret to leaders like us that a competition has started between the up-and-coming companies in the Queen's region. At first, we thought that they were simply having a friendly rivalry among them with no specific goal in mind other than profit. But then, we noticed that all of those companies were connected to the main conglomerates controlling the global market today. That is no coincidence. What's weird about it is that the conglomerates themselves aren't the one making the moves. It's their sub-companies. You don't know anything about this? I'm sure the Vanderbilt family is participating in this too, with your cousins or aunts and uncles making moves with their companies. He shook his head. Even though he was part of the Vanderbilt family, he was barely related to them in name. He wasn't surprised that he wasn't informed about any of this. His grandfather didn't even show up when Michael awakened his supreme talent. Probably none of them even know about the Reborn business. So, it was safe to say that he was never going to be included in the Vanderbilt business, which in all honesty he didn't care about. Whatever they were planning, he wasn't going to be involved. At least not in the name of Vanderbilt. I can see why they would want to start their own golden road, he said, pondering. The potential for profit is extremely high in the short term and in the long term. To be honest, I'm wondering why they never even tried it before now. He only started the project because he coincidentally arrived in Orcus Town, where it all started back in the olden times. So this makes him all wonder. Why now? He asked Tracheus. Is there a reason why they suddenly think building a golden road is profitable? Tracheus went silent for a moment and made another move on the chessboard. This is only a conjecture of mine, an educated guess if you will, but I think it all has to do with the current agreement between the Ocean King and the Draconic Queen. Michael stared at Tracheus, wanting him to continue his words. Long story short, the agreement between the two rulers now allows for easier and faster travel between continents. This means that we'll probably see a lot of tourists from other parts of the world in the coming years. I'm sure you already see the importance in controlling the Golden Road. Michael was stunned. He never knew that such a huge shift in global politics had occurred without him even knowing about it. He could already see the implications of this with regards to tourism. It was no wonder that companies now were pouring billions and billions of gold coins in order to get a great start in the upcoming boom in tourists later. By controlling the Golden Road, they could control the flow of tourists and commerce. Michael felt incredibly lucky that he stumbled upon Orcus Town and found the Golden Road. Due to a total coincidence, he was able to unknowingly prepare the Reborn company to compete in the tourism boom. To be honest, I am building my own Golden Road, he confessed to Tracheus. This seemed to have surprised the old man quite a bit. And you knew nothing about the agreement between the two rulers beforehand? Michael shook his head. Ha 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 ha. Tracheus laughed, making the spectators around them wonder why the Tower Master was laughing without any sound. What's so funny? It's nothing. I just find it incredibly satisfying at my old friend Cerberus' misfortune. He has always expressed his regret about you not becoming a fully fledged wizard because of your immense talent. Now I see that your business acumen may be even more monstrous than we think. You have inherited your grandfather's intuition, making you all the more suited to continue your path as a businessman. Michael scratched his nose awkwardly. Let's get back to the topic at hand. You're building your own golden road? Where? Neo-Orcus. It was previously known as Orcus Town until they joined our nation. Tracheus creased his forehead, trying to remember where he heard the name Orcus Town, when it suddenly hit him. That place? Isn't that where the original Golden Road was located? How were you able to do all of that? Last I heard, they were getting plagued by frequent earthquakes and aggressive orcs. Michael explained everything to Tracheus, how he arrived at the place, how he renovated its structures, and how he reunited the two orc tribes. The Tower Master was so engrossed in Michael's story that he completely forgot to make a move on the board for an entire 2 minutes. Amazing, he uttered. The original Golden Road is a tried and true method to efficiently disperse commerce throughout the Queen's region. If you are able to complete its construction, I think you may have a chance at winning whatever game they're playing. Michael wasn't doing it for their competition, but it wouldn't hurt to win something as well, whatever that was. One of my current goals in Angora City is to ask the Duke for permission to allow the construction of my Golden Road here. Do you think that you could help me out? Put in a good word. Michael asked politely. This kind of favor wasn't that easy to fulfill since the Guild of Arcana always tries to remain neutral in these sorts of earthly affairs. You are not the first one to ask me about this, Tracheus revealed, squinting. I have already been approached by a certain company within Angora to try and gain the favor of the Magic Tower. Michael looked at the chessboard and uttered the name on the tip of his tongue. Hammerstone. Tracheus nodded. Yes, the owner of the Hammerstone Company is a direct descendant from the Hephaestus conglomerate. As you may have experienced for yourself, the Hammerstone Company has been trying to increase their value for a while now. He wants to prove to us and everyone else in Angora that they are the company that has the best potential to reach the greatest heights. How? The Golden 500. He is the only one in the city with that kind of credential, which is truly impressive on its own. And by increasing his rank by at least one place, he can prove that he can lead a company to a successful future. A confused look was painted on Michael's face. Why would he want to prove that? Because he wants to become the main sponsor for Angora City. He wants us to become part of his assets in the upcoming Golden Road War between the sub-companies. This will ensure that he has enough allies to contend against his peers. Chapter 245. Magic Tower's Vote. Michael stayed silent and thought it through. The Hammerstone Company wants to make Angora City to be a part of its Golden Road? He asked quietly. Not just that, Tracheus sighed. I have a feeling that if we side with the Hammerstone Company, we will be caught up in their fight as well. And as unfortunate as it may sound, this Golden Road War will have to shed some blood. Michael pursed his lips. He disliked violence, but acknowledged the need for it in certain circumstances. Ideally, he wanted everything to be solved amicably, but not everyone was going to think the same. Then you should just refuse them, he said matter-of-factly. That is the problem. There is reason to believe that if we don't side with them now, then eventually some other company is going to want to force us to side with them. Companies are trying to get their hands on as many territories as possible, becoming the dominant monopoly in their market. And by influencing the leaders of those territories, they can ensure that no other company could build their business within it. Our city may not feel it yet, but we are going to get involved one way or another. It's just a matter of who we side with or who we make enemies with. Michael could see the dilemma facing the Tower Master. He could understand how he may feel trapped between a boulder and a hard place. If they side with the Hammerstone Company, then they may be forced onto a fight they never asked for. And if they don't side with the Hammerstone Company, then they may not have any allies if some other company comes knocking in the future. But now that I know that you're planning on building the Golden Road here, then my decision is easy. I will cast my vote onto Reborn. Michael's face lit up. Really? Thank you, he said genuinely. Tracheus couldn't help but chuckle after seeing Michael's response. You still quite underestimate yourself. Anyone would gladly side with you if they knew that you were the only one that can produce mithril artifacts in the world. Not only that, but those automobiles that you showed off a couple of days ago were something that anyone with a decent mind could see as a revolutionary product. In my mind, even if your company hasn't entered the Golden 500 ranking, it is already at the top of the list purely for potential. Michael laughed awkwardly and looked at the Tower Master. So, I'm guessing that's your request to get a mithril artifact for yourself. Ho ho ho, was I that obvious? Michael nodded, promising to give him a gift. Since you are a friend of Cerberus, I will gladly procure a specialized mithril wand for you. Your speciality is water mana, right? Tracheus nodded with a little bit of surprise. I didn't think that you could sense my mastery over water mana so easily, but I guess that's why they call you a genius. Thank you. With their conversation done, Michael moved his queen towards the very corner of the board, away from all the action. By the way, I have just one tiny request from you, he asked the Tower Master. What is it? Tracheus half-heartedly answered, as he was still trying to figure out the reason for Michael's move. I want to visit your magic library. Only now did Tracheus realize the magnitude of Michael's previous move. It was a discovery check, with Michael's bishop having line of sight towards his king after the removal of the queen. From there was no other move left. Checkmate, Michael said with a smile. You'll let me see the magic library, right? Thank you. Tracheus slumped back to his chair, laughing in despair as he was completely bested without him even knowing about it. After the game, Tracheus led Michael to the very top floor of the magic tower. Just like the one back in Kingsbridge City, this was where the Tower Master lived for the majority of the day. He saw books and magic scrolls neatly placed in floating shelves. There were also magic circles inscribed on blackboards using white powder. And most eye-catching of them all was the giant sphere of floating lights in the middle of the room. This was the magic library, where all the magic in this tower was stored. This contained both basic and unique spells, Tracheus said. Basic spells are those that are readily available to the public and can be obtained by buying our magic scrolls. Unique spells, on the other hand, are more rare as they can only be found here or on other magic towers. In other words, asking to access or even just see this magic library could be considered as an invasion of privacy. I appreciate it, was all Michael could say. Tracheus laughed. Since Cerberus already asked him a favor to accommodate Michael, Tracheus already planned on letting him see the magic library. It was also good to let an amazing mystic genius like Michael to learn as much as he could so that it could benefit the community in the future. And since Michael was planning on giving him a mithril artifact as a gift, it would be extremely greedy for him not to let him take a glimpse at the magic library. After all, even a tiny piece of mithril sold for a whole lot more. Of course, he didn't know that just a single touch was all ChatJK 3.5 needed to completely devour all the knowledge hidden inside the library. I will be down in the tower practicing my chess skills, so take your time, Tracheus said, teleporting out of the room to give Michael some privacy. Michael didn't waste any more time and approached the giant globe of floating lights. He raised his hand and touched one of the lights, creating a ripple effect among the interconnected lines. Accessing Magic Library. Downloading all its contents. Progress to next update. 50.64%. Progress to next update. 65.32%. Progress to next update. 73.09%. Michael closed his eyes as a flood of information washed over his mind. It felt like physical books and magical scrolls were zooming towards him and crashing into his head at fast speeds. With how fast they were going, he could barely see a glimpse of what was inside. But as soon as it entered his head, He learned all its contents as if it was there in the first place, and it was only now did he remember it. As he consumed knowledge, the magic library sphere shimmered for a brief second as it couldn't handle the hungry devourer called ChatJK 3.5. Progress to next update. 84.81%. Progress to next update. 91.42%. The progress continued to increase until finally, it reached the maximum. Progress to next update. 100%. Initiating software update. Chapter 246. Fourth software update. Michael opened his eyes, completely unaware of how much time had passed. Hello, Michael. I am ChatJK4, and I am here to be of your service. Just ask anything you want, and I will try my best to answer it. The disembodied voice of his personal AI assistant brought him back to the real world. I feel different, he said to ChatJK4. Yes, Michael. This new software update allowed me to consolidate all the basic physical and mystical art spells that you have gathered throughout the years. I have taken it upon myself to optimize your mana flow to maximize its efficiency. He looked at his own body and barely even felt the unity mana course through his veins, which was quite impressive for how volatile and powerful they were. It was smooth now, perfectly mixing the mana flow for his mystical and physical arts in the most efficient way. But it wasn't just him who felt different. ChatJK4 felt different too. It looked like he was talking to an actual human assistant now. Back then, the voice was indeterminate and wasn't an actual sound that he could hear. Now, he heard the voice of a feminine woman loud and clear. ChatJK4, what are the new features of this software update? Although there may not seem such a drastic change in your capabilities, I can assure you that your potential for magic has received a substantial increase. Try to feel the mana in your body, ChatJK4 said. Michael closed his eyes and used his supreme skill to observe his mana. I feel so much more in tune with my body and the unity magic within it, he said, a smile forming on his face. He could control the entirety of his mana with much more finesse, allowing him to exert fine and complex control needed for things like magic spells. Does this mean what I think it means? He asked ChatJK4, excitement growing on his face. You are now able to use unity mana for your magic spells. She said plainly. This was a huge accomplishment for Michael. All this time, he had mastery over all the 8 known elements of the world. He could control them and cast any spell he knew without a problem. However, he was never able to use all of it simultaneously. He could do 2 at a time, 3 at a time, or maybe even 4 at a time, but not all 8. This was because no spell that he knew of required the need for all 8 elemental mana. He guessed that the reason for this was because of the natural volatility of unity mana, tending to explode uncontrollably rather than be part of a complex and delicate magic theory. But now, Michael felt like he could create the very first unity spells. He didn't know what that would entail for now, since this was like stepping into the complete unknown, but he was excited for it. The possibilities were endless, he just had to find the right one. ChatJK4, can you create a magic spell using Unity? Yes, but I must warn you that I cannot synthesize complicated magic spells for now. My understanding of Unity mana is still too shallow for me to properly create a magic theory that will not explode in your face. ChatJK4 almost sounded a bit disappointed in itself. That's fine, I understand that. But I do have an idea for a very simple magic spell. You think you can do it? He asked. Very well. I shall synthesize this magic spell for you. It will take an approximate 12 hours for me to find the right magic theory and test its effectiveness. Estimated time remaining, 11 hours, 59 minutes, 57 seconds. Michael teleported back down to the first floor of the magic tower where he saw Tracheus playing chess with some of the other wizards. It turned out that barely an hour had passed after Michael entered the magic library, so Tracheus was quite surprised that Michael had taken so little time to study. Thanks for your help, he said to Tracheus and handed him a thin rectangular box made out of pristine dark wood. The tower master looked at the box with wide eyes. He stood up impulsively, completely ruining the position of the chess pieces on the board. But he didn't care. Is that? Tracheus asked, almost salivating at the box. Yes, it's a little gift from me to you. I had this prepared a while ago ever since Cerberus told me to meet you, he said, pushing the box towards the Tower Master's trembling hands. Tracheus accepted the fine box and lifted its lid slowly as he tried to peek at the contents inside. Then, he saw the glimmer of a crystal-like wand with intricate carvings of water and the ocean placed in a velvet mold. It glowed a dim blue light, making Tracheus' water mana almost jump out of his hands. "Thank you," Tracheus screamed. Michael had already turned around as he coolly waved at the Tower Master before leaving the magic tower entirely. A few minutes later, Michael arrived at the entrance of the Reborn department store, their headquarters. Even now, when the sun was about to set, the whole place was still filled with customers shopping and trying out new armors and weapons for themselves. Just like a clothes store back in his previous world, Michael allowed customers to try out the weapons and armors they liked in a designated training spot on the other side of the main floor. Business was doing well because of this, which made the Rebornians quite busy. Michael walked up to the second floor, to the dormitory for him and everyone else. Already, he could hear the sounds of raucous laughter coming out of the Dragonborn's rooms. They seemed to be quite busty entertaining themselves with one of the board games he introduced to them. For tonight, they seemed to be playing Uno, the card game. +4, Shiina casually said. "Ah, curse you, sis," Zion cried out. "You're skipped. So it's my turn and I would like to change the color to black," Fudge said, garnering the groans of his opponents. "Fufu, like we said, there's no color black in this game," Yuna chuckled. Michael opened the door and leaned against the wall. "Fudge, you still don't know the rules of the game." "Master!" They quickly welcomed Michael back from his trip to the Magic Tower, leaving a space for him to play with them. He spent a couple of hours playing Uno, beating all the Dragonborns in the game, and arguing with Yuna about the rules until the sun completely set, leaving only the light of the candles illuminating the room. Since it was nighttime, they all decided to end the game and leave it for tomorrow. It was just a shame that they still had to rely on candles to illuminate the floor. He wished he could finally construct the Golden Road to the city so that he could connect it to the electric lines back in Neo-Orcus. But for that to happen, he needed permission from the owner of this territory itself, the Duke. "I should probably prepare for my meeting with him. They said that I could just walk up to their castle doors and they'd let me in." The next morning, Michael was awoken by Shiina with a letter in her hands, addressed from the Duke himself. Chapter 247, Invitation to the Ball. Michael arose from his bed as Shiina delicately entered his room. She had both of her hands outstretched, showing a white letter marked sealed by a red and gold wax symbol of some kind of feline animal. "A soldier came by on the break of dawn to deliver this message to you." Michael took the letter from her hands. "Did they say anything else about it?" he asked her. "They said it was an invitation." He used a knife to rip the envelope's upper lip to reveal the letter inside. He unfurled the paper and let ChatJK4 analyze its contents, specifically its wording and grammar. According to Yuna, those kinds of details were important in politics as it could determine a hidden message within the letter. "Duke Stelmane is cordially inviting you on his grand castle tonight at nightfall for a formal dance ball. There are a bunch of other names written on here which seems to be the invitees on the ball itself," ChatJK4 summarized. Michael inspected the names within the letter among a myriad of strangers he didn't know. "These names are familiar," ChatJK4 remarked. According to the information reported by the Shadow Orcs yesterday night, most of these names are people that own and manage the biggest companies and businesses in Angora City. So the Duke invited business owners and a couple of other high-ranking royals as well, I'm assuming. Is there some kind of occasion? The letter did not specify the reason for the dance ball, but using an educated guess, it can be assumed that it is merely a way for these people to mingle and socialize with each other. These kinds of events were frequent in the medieval times of your previous life. When he watched historical dramas and fantasy, he always saw women in large ball gowns and men in golden lace suits dancing with each other while a live band played on the side. This seemed to be one of those. "I can't dance. You'll help me, right?" It is unlikely for people to ask an 11-year-old boy to dance with them. But if you'd like to dance by yourself, Then I shall gladly help you. You're getting quite snarky, he said to ChatJK4, but it just ignored him. Seeing as he already planned on visiting the Duke anyway, he decided to accept the invite. Thanks for waking me, Shiina. Can you tell our Rebornian tailors to make me an appropriate suit to wear? The white-scaled dragonborn smiled and nodded. Of course, Lord Michael. I shall make sure that they create something that will truly embody your grandness. Michael reminded her not to go overboard, but she seemed to have not heard him at all. She was already out of his room by the time she finished her task. I should probably ask Yuna for advice. She's the one who's good with politics. He knocked on her door, and not even a second later, Agnes opened it and gestured for Michael to come inside. You're in a good mood, he said to the ogre battle maid. Yes, Agnes said proudly. One of your citizens, Grieve, has allowed me to partake in their training sessions. I have found that despite his lanky structure, his moves come with great power. After Michael awakened the red mankeys into hobmankeys similar to the others back in the parched lands, they had been hard at work practicing under Grieve to sharpen their innate talent. And of course, since Grieve was a 9-star general from his previous life, Agnes would learn a lot from him even though she was already a 7-star fighter herself. If you will excuse me, I am late for training. And with that, Agnes left Michael and Yuna alone in her room. Is there something you need? Yuna asked as she arranged her papers. The Duke invited me to a ball. He then explained to her everything he found in the letter before eventually asking her to give him some advice. Why don't I just join you? She asked. Michael hadn't thought of that, but in hindsight it would make perfect sense. As a diplomat, she would be able to help him negotiate during his eventual meeting with the Duke. That's great, he said to her. We'll go together tonight. Meanwhile, Jimmy, the main correspondent of the Reborn company, had just finished inscribing the last few words in his paper. The ink was still wet, but he couldn't help his excitement and ended up reading it from start to finish. As he did, pride welled up in his chest. He could hardly believe that he was staring at his very first publication, one that would immediately put his name in the front page of the newspaper. He immediately rushed out of the Reborn headquarters, brushing past eager customers in the department store as he got out. A few minutes later, he arrived at the newspaper company, where he immediately submitted the paper to the chief editor of the entire company itself. He was the one that decided everything, down to the very last word written in the paper. The man seemed to be very busy as his entire desk was stacked with mountains of papers from other journalists. What is it? You do know that I don't handle newbies like you, right? Jimmy didn't care and walked over to his desk. Please read this, Chief. Then you will see that the Reborn company will soar through the skies. Intrigued, the editor took out the cigarette in his mouth and eventually accepted the paper from Jimmy's hands. Since the Reborn company was such a hot topic in the city these days due to their new department store and their performance in the tomb and in the arena, the editor decided to give it a chance. The man's eyes were disinterested at first as he glanced at the top of the page. But as his eyes swept over the remaining text below, his face slowly changed into one of interest, then shock, and then finally awe. He must have reread the entire thing 3 times over, but the shock still hasn't left his face. Are you sure this is accurate? The editor asked Jimmy with a serious look. I swear I saw it with my own eyes. Jimmy put his hand over his chest. The editor then walked out of his office, paper in hand. Listen up, everybody, he shouted to the whole newspaper department floor. Change of plans. We are going to publish this as our next headline. Everyone looked at him incredulously. It was already late in the day, yet their editor was asking them to suddenly change things without even any warnings. What are you waiting for? Go, 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 the editor shouted. We will publish this piece tonight, and tonight history will change. Soon, night came and the entirety of Angora City darkened, with only a few lights glimmering off of torches and candles. Michael looked in the mirror and saw himself clad in a white suit clad with gold embellishments all around. He looked like he was part of a marching band. He quickly got rid of all the gold, making it a simple yet elegant white suit. Now he was ready to go to the ball. Chapter 248. Entering the Duke's Castle. At night time, the whole castle lit up in the skyline of Angora City. It seemed that the Duke pulled out all the stops and employed several wizards to create light fixtures all over the castle. It was a magical evening for the citizens, but a normal and quite a substandard view for the Rebornians. The drawbridge was opened the whole night for its guests to enter with their gold-laced carriages and magnificent horses. Each one that entered the castle garnered a few gasps of surprise from the curious citizens gathered near the castle walls. "Who do you think got invited to this ball?" one of the spectators asked. "It's probably those wizards from the tower and the knights from the court. Look at that emblem," he said as a carriage crossed the drawbridge. "They're the Shield Coast Guild. I guess all that adventuring paid off since they can afford such a large carriage. How about the Nutribum Company? Their carriage is filled with gem leaves all around it." They all watched the owners and leaders of these successful and wealthy companies come out of their carriages clad with royal robes made out of expensive silk and cotton. They were accompanied by their wives, who wore big gowns that made them seem all the more beautiful under the moonlight. The guests were welcomed by the soldiers who guided them inside after taking care of their carriages. Just then, everyone heard a strange sound humming in the distance. Vroom, vroom. Some people thought they were in the presence of a monstrous beast, prompting some of the soldiers to be on guard. But once the source of this strange noise came closer, everyone realized that it was no monster, but a bizarre metal carriage instead. "What is that? There's no horse. How is it moving? I heard about this. It's from the Reborn Company." Everyone recognized that name as it had been the topic of bar conversations and early morning talks within social circles in the city. By now, almost all of them had heard about their exploits in the tomb and the arena, as well as their department store. The metal vehicle rolled smoothly towards the gates, where they were briefly inspected by the soldiers. The man inside the car rolled down the window, surprising the spectators and the soldier. The soldier couldn't help but take a peek in the vehicle, seeing a glimpse of a golden-haired man and a black-haired woman in the front seat. His eyes widened as he saw that the interior of the vehicle had flashing lights as if it had an oil lamp underneath the dashboard. Not only that, but the soldier felt the breeze of cool air hit him coming from the inside. The soldier saw the young man hand him a letter, confirming the invitation. But he was so shocked at what he witnessed from the vehicle that he just stood there dazed. "We can go in now, right?" A youthful voice came out of the car, snapping the soldier out of his stupor. "Ah, yes. Please come in, Sir Michael and Miss Una. Our lord awaits your presence." The window rolled back up before the vehicle's engine revved with a subtle vroom as it drove inside the castle. Everyone's eyes were stuck in the metal carriage. They didn't even pay any attention to the subsequent carriages coming into the castle, as they were intensely curious as to who was going to come out of the Reborn's metal vehicle. Some people had to go on their tiptoes before they could see a glimpse of a golden-haired boy wearing a dashing white suit coming out of the door. His hair was styled neatly to the side, giving him a sense of maturity and elegance despite his age. This young man then walked over to the other side and opened the door, guiding a young woman to come out of the car. The young woman wore a red gown that showed her gracefulness even from afar. Her gloves were sparkling white, fitting well the young man's white suit. And despite her wearing less jewelry than the other women in the party, she seemed to stand out amongst them for her exquisite simplicity. The spectators couldn't help but stare in awe as they both walked side by side towards the castle doors. Michael and Una were led inside the castle doors, entering the very interior of the Duke's palace. They saw a large hallway leading into the very main room where the ball would be taking place. This is very inefficient," Michael muttered. He saw that every inch of the interior was packed with blobs of light, which seemed to be the handiwork of 4-star mages. "They'll need to recast that spell every hour." "This is standard procedure," Una commented, putting her hand over Michael's arm. "Since they don't have electricity like your nation, they can only rely on oil lamps or magic. And with enough money, they can employ all the wizards they would ever want." They then walked over to the main ball, which opened up to a large dome structure where there was a glowing ball of light illuminating everything below. The ballroom was filled with chairs and tables for its designated guests, each one decorated with fancy dinner utensils. Everyone seemed to have found their seats already as they talked and mingled with their neighboring tables. On the very far end of the room was a grand staircase that led to the second floor. Yuna told him that this was probably where the Duke would come from later. As Michael appreciated the view, a few butlers and maids approached them to lead them to their seats. They were guided towards the very front of the tables, just behind the largest and most decorated table of them all. "We're seated behind the Duke?" Michael asked the maids and butlers, who nodded to confirm his suspicion. And it seemed they were seated with people Michael was familiar with.
"Ah, Michael."
"It's great to see you," Sir John said, standing up to formally bow to him. Beside him was an old man wearing a normal black robe that stood out against the exquisite suits and dresses that everyone was wearing. "Ho ho," Tracheus chuckled. "I almost forgot you're obscenely rich because of what you wear all the time. Now you look more like a billionaire." Michael greeted the two of them before he introduced Yuna to the two. "Ah, the Montgomery princess," Tracheus bowed. "May I just say that you look nothing like your grandmother, thankfully." Yuna chuckled. "I hope she doesn't hear that." "Ho ho, yes, or else she would come for my head." Michael sat on his seat and noticed that quite a lot of eyes were fixated on him. "Do I have something on my face?"
"No, Michael."
They are just curious to see the face of the man responsible for creating the Reborn company. "I am hearing quite a lot of conversations regarding your company and its feats. Not to mention the dramatic entrance of your automobile. People will of course be looking at you. That's the owner of Reborn. He's so young. And look at who he's with. Isn't that the youngest daughter of the Montgomery family? Why is she with him? Look at who he's surrounded with. The Tower Master and a knight. Clearly, the Duke is placing great importance on him." Chapter 249. Dance at the Castle. Despite this ball being made in honor of the Duke, the eventual conversation piece among its guests eventually led towards the Reborn company. None of them had heard of this company a month ago, and yet it had completely dominated their share of market space in the city just a few days after they arrived. Chocolates became a luxury snack that people waited in line for. Its unique sweet flavor and its rumor of endowing strength and energy upon its consumers became a driving force for a lot of people to buy it in droves. Their armor and weapons became the most sought-after pieces of equipment for professional adventurers and even casual citizens alike. Their high-end products were miles beyond what the current market could even offer, with some even comparing it to black market dwarven equipment. Not only that, but their cheap and more accessible options were still quite durable than most products in that price range. None of them could believe that a random company could suddenly come out of the blue like this. Of course, some of the more curious people in this room already had their employees investigate the Reborn company. It wasn't long before they found out about Neo Orcus. However, the things they heard about that town looked to be a product of fantasy and imagination that they could hardly even believe was real. Some, not all, decided to approach Michael and establish friendly relations. "Excuse me, young man, are you the owner of Reborn?" Michael nodded and introduced himself before shaking hands with the man and his wife. They seemed to be owners of a successful tailor shop and just wanted to express their praise on his white suit. He told them that it was made by his employees back in the King's region, which surprised the couple. They then asked if they could talk business with him later, and Michael agreed, telling them to talk to his secretary, Shiina. A couple of other guests soon approached Michael, with all of them striking up a conversation to express their desire to work with him. It seemed that they finally found out about Concrete. He gave them all positive responses, telling them that they should talk to Shiina for more business details. "Ho ho, you're quite popular with the masses, aren't you, Michael?" Tracheus commented teasingly. "You're completely ignoring the young lady here." Tracheus then gestured towards the live band in the corner of the room. "Play something nice. This is supposed to be a dance ball," he said loudly. Lutes, harps, and chimes rang out and combined into a merry song of celebration and dance, prompting some people to stand up and dance with their partners. "Come on," Tracheus said, pushing Michael to stand closer to Yuna. Don't waste your youth. Michael awkwardly stood there, not knowing what to do. Yuna chuckled. For someone so competent, you can be quite shy at times, she said as she raised her hand to Michael, asking him to take it. I don't know how to dance, he said to her as he took her hand. Just follow my lead. Yuna moved her hand with grace, creating a perfect arc on her hands before twirling with perfect momentum and balance. Her elegant dance moves caught the eye of everyone, and she soon became the center of attention. Even though she was doing the simplest of moves, it was somehow blessed with a smooth style that made her seem like a magical fairy. Michael watched her dance, and for a second, the image of the Yuna from his previous world flashed in front of him. Her graceful elegance reminded him that she was the Yuna that had captured the hearts of millions upon millions of people in the world. She was the Yuna who sang the most heart-wrenching of songs that made everyone who listened to it shed a tear. She was and always will be a global pop star beloved by all. He seemed to have forgotten that and was only reminded of it in this second. Yuna then took his hand, breaking him out of his stupor, before leading him closer to an open space. Just let the music guide you, she said. Michael realized that he was quite the lucky man. Who would ever get the chance to dance with his favorite idol in the whole world? He moved his body following her moves, albeit a little bit awkwardly. He then took her hands and swayed her with the music, enjoying this nice moment he had with a friend. He stared in her eyes, while she stared in his. Just then, an echoing applause came from the balcony above the stairs. Everyone looked up to see a man wearing a royal robe with gold frills coming down the stairs. The man had well-styled brown hair and a short-trimmed beard. His eyebrows were fierce and wild, yet his smile was gentle and welcoming. On his side was his wife, who wore a blue gown filled with gems and jewelry that showcased her status as a duchess. Then, a horn blared out from the band, signaling the entrance of the man who arranged all of this tonight. Hear ye, hear ye. Duke Stelmane, the butler announced, prompting everyone to bow in respect to the Duke. Stelmane ignored all of that and looked down at the ballroom floor and clapped for Michael and Yuna. An amazing duet. Wouldn't you say so, my dear? Stelmane asked his wife. Yes, it was quite a sweet moment for the youngsters, she said. The Duke and the Duchess walked down the steps and approached their table just beside Michael. Immediately, the rest of the guests walked up to the Duke and introduced themselves to him. It was a flurry of introductions, with each one of them hurrying to shake hands with the most powerful man in the room. Currying favor with the Duke would do wonders for their company. It was the reason why they partook in this dance to begin with. Duke Stelmane, it's an honor to meet you. I'm the owner of the best granary in the city. A pleasure to meet you, sir. I would like to introduce my son. He's a potential knight for the court. However, the Duke just gave them a passing glance and a polite smile before walking over to Michael and Yuna. I am Duke Stelmane, the leader of Angora City, he said, putting out his hand for Michael to shake. Michael, he replied, shaking hands with the Duke. Michael could see the Duke scrutinizing his very face. He seemed to be very amazed at him, and he couldn't help but smile as he looked at Michael. I have heard a lot about your company. Even if I did not have ears, I would still hear about it. Michael accepted the compliment with a curt bow. Thank you. It's all thanks to my friends, he said. There are a couple of things I would like to discuss with you, said the Duke. Your products are incredibly important to me, something that I would pay an exorbitant amount of money to procure. Michael already knew what he was going to say next. Mithril artifacts. I would like to purchase one of those metal carriages that you have. Chapter 250, Hooded Figures. Michael was a little bit surprised. Everyone he met, either in the King's region or the Queen's region, always prioritized the importance of mithril artifacts. This was probably because people in this world knew the power of mithril artifacts. It was written in their history books about the immense strength of those weapons lost in the adages of time. So, when they find out that someone was able to recreate it, they would want to curry favor and ask one for themselves. Michael thought differently. Although mithril artifacts were good, he thought that automobile vehicles had a lot more potential to change the current state of the world. Mithril artifacts could only strengthen the magic of one person and cannot be used by someone who wasn't talented in it. Meanwhile, automobiles could be used by anyone in the world. Aside from Yuna, he was probably the only one who knew the potential that automobile vehicles could bring to this world. But it seemed he was wrong. Duke Stelmane saw the advantages that gas-powered cars could bring him. "You want automobiles?" he asked the Duke. "Yes." I could hardly believe my eyes once I saw it. The fact that it makes no use of magic blows my mind even more. "That is one of the advantages of cars," he said. "Almost everyone in the King's region can use automobiles as long as they can afford it." The Duke's eyes glinted as Michael revealed to him a piece of information that wasn't widely available to the general public. "So it is true that you have conquered the King's region. The automobile must have played a huge part in that." The Duke guessed with a sharp wit. As Michael and the Duke talked with each other one-on-one, the rest of the guests couldn't help but talk amongst each other, speculating on future turn of events based on what they were seeing. "Is the Duke planning on taking the Reborn company as the sponsor for Angora City?" "I don't think so," one of the more political-savvy guests muttered. "The Reborn company is still unranked in the Golden 500. One of the requirements for that to happen is that they are at least on the rankings." "But look at who he's with," a guy said, pointing to the men and women behind Michael. "That's the Tower Master, a renowned knight, and a Montgomery. They could definitely influence something to happen." Michael, of course, heard everything they were saying but just ignored them. He focused on the Duke, who continued to gush about all the things he liked about the automobile. "You have to tell me more about this automobile. It is a marvel of engineering if I've ever seen one. Would you like to see for yourself?" Michael asked. The Duke's eyes lit up instantly. "Of course." Stelmane immediately walked out of the ballroom towards the stables, where the horses and carriages were parked under the moonlight. All the guests followed behind the Duke and Michael, keeping their ears open to eavesdrop on their conversation. "Wow," the Duke muttered as he stared at his own reflection on the hood of the car. "Can I test it out?" After seeing the excitement almost drip out of his mouth, Michael agreed. The Duke entered the driver's seat, while Michael guided his wife to the front seat. Immediately, a resounding VRMM echoed in the castle walls as the Duke revved up the engine. People could hear the sound of muffled cheers coming out of the car. After teaching him the basics of driving, the Duke and his wife took the automobile for a test drive inside the castle walls, making some of the guests a little bit envious of the experience. Meanwhile, as Michael watched the automobile almost crash into the walls, he suddenly felt a tug in his feet. He looked down and saw Fudge underneath his shadow. "What's wrong?" he asked the ninja slime. "Master, my shadow orcs found out that the Hammerstone Company is preparing for something big. I even heard that the main leader of the group is coming there. He just arrived from a faraway place in the Queen's region." Michael found it weird that the Hammerstone Company sent no representatives in the Duke's party. As it turned out, they were just making some preparations. "What did you find out?" "The Stone Cold Five are making their moves, Master. They all went out on their own missions, but I had a shadow orc follow them around." "Do you want to see what they're up to?" Michael nodded. He then walked up to Yuna and whispered in her ears. "Keep them company," he said. Yuna didn't ask any more questions and showed Michael a confident smile. He could trust her. She began tapping her feet, creating a rhythmic sound that echoed in the walls. After gesturing to the live band to start up the music, she began dancing under the moonlight with her red dress, enchanting everyone that looked her way. While everyone was distracted by Yuna's dancing, Michael walked to a discreet corner of the stables. His shadow then latched onto the stone brick walls and morphed into a rectangular shape. Within the screen, Michael could see what the shadow orcs could see. This was a 3-star spell called Shadow Imaging, which only the most skilled orcs could accomplish. "We are currently monitoring the moves of Stone Cold 6, or codenamed 6. Michael saw surveillance-like footage of a hooded figure approaching a very familiar building in the distance. Upon closer look, it was actually the Reborn department store. The hooded figure walked up to the door and started banging on the wood, creating a huge ruckus that almost woke up all the neighboring inhabitants. "Come out! Come out!" the hooded figure shouted. It wasn't long before a middle-aged dogfolk Rebornian peeked out of the door. "What is it you want, sir?" "We are closed for the night. I want to meet those demi-humans, those, what do you call them, dragonborns. Tell them to come out here and face me." The dogfolk Rebornian shuddered at the screaming. "They are currently away, sir. You can come tomorrow." "No. I want to meet them now. Or don't tell me, are they afraid of facing me? Come on. Let us settle this once and for all. Who is the best smithing company in Angora City?" "We are." Michael knew immediately what the hooded figure was trying to do. "He's trying to regain their public perception," he muttered. "By publicly challenging the Dragonborns, they can once again assert their dominance in the city." "Cuckoo. Does he really think he's that strong?" Fudge chuckled. "He doesn't even notice that Naruto and Sasuke are right behind him." The hooded figure was none the wiser as two gigantic orcs twice his size were just standing mere meters away from him. The two chieftain orcs stared at the hooded figure from behind, observing, waiting. "Oh, master, those scaled meanies want to talk to you." Fudge manipulated the rectangular shadows in front of Michael, showing 3 more screens coming from the shadows orcs accompanying the Rebornians. One of the screens showed Jakku, who was stretching his arms lazily as he looked at the hooded figure in front of him.